My name is Dr. Hassan, as you heard. I'm a physician cardiologist. My interest to set the case. We have colleagues, especially Dr. Abdul, who will give us more insight into probably what you guys need to do. I understand most of the guys are medicine, yeah? But you have various, you have other fields, pharmacy, we have, or it's just medicine?
We have it.
We have it. So, I would like to talk my point on basically 5 pointers. Number one, the most important thing is you are at different stages of your career. Second year, 3rd years, 4th years, 5th years. Whatever you aim to do at the end of your graduation, the most important thing, of course, is to maintain your Islamic core principle and values, because that's what matters most. Number 2 is to be open-minded. I know all of you guys are being trained to be doctors, and there's a classic course. I want to finish medicine, specialize in internal medicine, do cardiology, interventional. You continue until you end up in one of the cells of the heart. Okay? But I want you to be open-minded. Don't have that rigid robotic training. Right now, nobody has advised me. But if I had an option, probably I would have changed my mind. I'm not saying, of course, cardiology is not bad. It's a very good thing. But I want you to have an open mind. When I say open mind, what do I mean? Number one, apart from the mainstream medical subspecialties, pediatrics, surgery, whatever you call it, there are a lot of other fields which most of us don't know about it, and they are highly needed. A very good example is genetics. Just an example. There is no geneticist in the whole of East Africa, medical geneticist. And I don't know how much you guys read around apart from the classic medical textbooks. These days we are going to something called precision medicine, whereby you are able to identify, you can even predict whether a patient will develop hypertension. We have reached that level. Just to give you an example, one of the classes of medicine, drugs we use, for example, in HIV, is a drug called abacavir, although it has been ruled out. It so happened that abacavir, you can't give to anybody, for example. Because what they discover is you develop what we call abacavir hypersensitivity. And the reason is because some people, they carry a specific gene mutation. So based on that, people have started talking of now, why can't we genetically analyze somebody and predict, one, whether he will be developing certain diseases. Number 2, we do something called targeted therapy. A very good example is a disease called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in cardiology. It's a hereditary cardiomyopathy, blah, blah, blah. It's a long story, but anyway, they are able to discover the genes that are responsible for the development of that disease. And just as late as 2019 in the European Society of Cardiology, a drug has been approved. It's called mavacamten. And how it works is it basically, you remember something called myosin, the contractility of the heart and those things. Of course, this is not a physiology class, I'm sorry, but this is an example. So those myosin heavy chains is one of the contractile apparatus of basically the heart. So that's how it interacts with the drug. And how do they come to that? Because they work backwards based on genetics. So this is one of the fields I really, really wish a lot of people take up, because it's extremely, extremely important. And with precision medicine, with targeted therapy, with immunopharmacology, these days we are talking about immunopharmacology, genetics is a very important field. Number 2 is emergency medicine. Emergency physicians are, of course, the most important physicians when it comes to hospital care, because people seek medical advice first in casualty or accident emergency. And emergency medicine are like broad spectrum kind of physicians, and you have very few in this country. You can even finish your undergraduate and go straight for emergency medicine. And once you do emergency medicine, you also have the opportunity of going into orthopedic surgery or cardiology. Another important thing is medical education and training. You can be a medical educationist. You don't necessarily have to be a medical lecturer. I know all of us are students of the University of Nairobi. Unfortunately, very few lecturers, maybe 1 or 2, have been trained to be medical educationists. You can even set up a platform for medical education. I know of some guys who started their residency in Aga Khan, for example, and finally they just decided, no, this is not for me. They set up a medical education hub where they have started setting up curriculum and training students like you guys and earning a living or something like that. And you can pursue such a career. Number 4 is MBA, what we call business administration, masters in business administration. But when I'm talking about MBA specifically, I'm talking health-related programs like healthcare management, health economics. There are very few. I know of a young gentleman who, when I was a registrar, was one of the people who used to mentor. He has gone and done, he went to South Africa and did the master of MBA in health economics. And right now he has a consultancy firm. All he does is just advises these big hospitals where to invest, where not to invest. I hope you're following, yeah? Because I want to sway you. If you want to be a clinician, so be it. But also have at the back of your mind, don't be rigid, don't be robotic, don't say, hata ya amefanya cardiology. You know, I just want to open your mind. Another important thing is, it was just recently launched, I think, 1 year ago, and the forefront school that is providing that is one of those Ivy League schools in the US. There is something called MBA in hospital business. It's a new concept, but a lot of people who have even done the MD interventional cardiology are enrolling into it. It's basically setting up healthcare and so on and so forth. Another important thing is pharmacology. Now, pharmacology is different from pharmacy. Those are two different things. Because generally, pharmacologists have a medical background. They are clinicians. Basically, there's an interface between medicine, drugs, or whatever kind of therapeutic target you're using, and the human body, because they understand both physiology, pathology, so and so forth, plus now the pharmacological whatever. Now I want to dwell a little bit on this. There are a lot of pharma companies. I mean, most of the pharmaceutical companies you all are aware. And they require what we call scientific advisors. They require people who will give them insight into new molecules, so on and so forth, research, so on and so forth, what they call R&D, research and development. And this is an area we are highly underrepresented as doctors generally, whether Muslim or Muslim, it doesn't matter. And it's only recently doctors have started learning this thing of joining a pharmaceutical company, either for research and development or heading their respective scientific committees and so on and so forth. So it's something worthwhile considering and very important. Number 6 is something called bioinformatics. This has some relationship with medical genetics, but more of electronic health records, electronic medical register, so on and so forth, but somehow, somewhere intertwined with genetics, so that you can even have a biobank. You can even take your entire DNA and put it in a bank, and then, for example, if you develop a disease, you have your lineage, you know specifically you have a mutation in X, and the kind of treatment to be given. So that you can use, like, what you call, you can use DNA of the person as a fingerprint, what we call medical fingerprint. Then there is research and advocacy, a huge area where we are lacking. When you look at the data that's being generated, whatever it is, most of the guidelines we use in the treatment of hypertension, stroke, all of them, they come from the West. And even these days, when you look at the Western data, basically West and North America, they try to represent. So when a study comes out, one of the things you look at is the ethnicity and representation. Gender is very important, age is very important, because, for example, when we are treating hypertension in the elderly and hypertension in the young, the approach is totally different. When you are treating, for example, if a female comes to me with chest pain, the way I approach is different from a male who comes with chest pain. So those gender, race, and so on and so forth are different. Hypertension, for example, when you look at hypertensive, a white man or a woman who is hypertensive, you may not see, I'm saying you may not see amlodipine in her treatment, calcium channel blocker. But for a black person, calcium channel blocker has to be there. You get what I mean? So there's that racial, gender, so on and so forth difference. Now the biggest problem we have is lack of research. And this place is virgin in terms of research and also. And you can ask for grants. There are people, some of lecturers in the University of Nairobi who rely entirely on grant research and so on and so forth. So it's something you can develop. These days you can even do PhD in research, epidemiology, clinical or otherwise. So research and advocacy is another important area. I'm still talking about the point of being open-minded. Finally, and most important, digital health. Of course, right now in a digital era, everybody has a smartphone. People are talking of, I don't know if you have the so-called Apple Watch. For example, there was a study that was done in America. It's a huge study, and it has even given an insight into atrial fibrillation, the epidemiology, and so on and so forth. And they developed this concept called artificial intelligence. These days, things are being interpreted. Even coronary angiograms are done by robots. You can even do it. Your work is just here, just to follow what it's doing. So this artificial intelligence, deep machine learning, neural networks, digital health, apps, so that you can monitor whatever you want to do. You can even have all your health data in just one app. The development of health apps are very important. So digital health, so much so that there is a branch of European Society of Cardiology that's entirely dedicated to digital health and digital cardiology. So that is the open-minded. Basically, in summary, for that point, what I'm trying to tell you is, please don't be rigid. Don't just say, I want to be a clinician. I will go ahead and be a clinician, but be open-minded. So that if I am, for example, applying for internal medicine somewhere, and somebody has the same degree with me, but in addition to that, has an IT background or something, that person is more likely to be given a chance than the mainstream person who is just specialized in medicine. Number 3 is networking, and this networking can go in every aspect. I know all of you guys here, your friends, brothers, sisters, etc. But I don't know, for whatever reason, when you finish, people lose touch. And we are not all the same. There are some people who will be successful out there than others. So when you are successful out there, please remember your brothers and sisters. If there's an opportunity opening, I'll give you an example. We had a group of guys who finished together at a graduate. One of us during the CDC, I'm sure you know CDC, yeah? Center for Disease, it's basically the Ministry of Health in the US. We do a lot of activities. So that gentleman immediately, he started doing his own epidemiology, but immediately he was promoted, he invited another friend. So right now there are 6 of them. One of them is leading the COVID-19 pandemic globally. The whole world, he's the one who's managing COVID, WHO. Another one is leading polio, the whole world. It's not only Africa or whatever. And the good thing they did is they pulled 6 other guys. Some of them are in Geneva, others in New York, others in Jordan, so on and so forth. So networking is very important. Do not forget your brothers and sisters. If you happen to join an NGO, you join a pharmaceutical company. For example, Novartis employs you as a senior, whatever, scientific committee advisor, and then there's a position that's coming up. Call your colleagues, network, just tell them there's this opportunity, if you're interested, please apply. You get what I mean? So that networking is extremely important. Networking also with your seniors. I mean, just contact your seniors so that if there's a residency opening somewhere, like Abdulkin now is going to US, the Mayo Clinic is one of the most prestigious clinics in the health world. If he goes there, for example, he finds an opportunity, he posts to you guys if there's a WhatsApp group, for example, and one of you may end up joining him. Number 4, develop a side career. We don't have to be, all of us, just pure medicine so that you don't know anything else going around. I don't know how many of you guys follow politics, football. All we just know is pathophysiology of hypertension. So that if you swing to go to outside fast, then you get lost. No, don't be like that. Please just develop other careers. What we call side dish, basically. This can be information technology, very important. It can be an extra language. I know some guys who finished undergraduate here, who are some of the people who are mentoring. I was very happy to see him some few weeks ago, and he told me he was doing cardiothoracic surgery in Germany. Probably what he was doing is when he was doing his internship, he enrolled in German language. And Germany is one of the countries, there is no exams completely, you can just join the system so long as you have German language. And Germany, of course, is advanced in medicine. So basically what I'm telling you is, as much as you are learning medicine, I know right now some of these things not making sense. We have pharmacology to read for, we have microbiology, we have exams, some part of it, nafasi ya kusoma like German language, but you have to. I know maybe a good number of you guys probably are not aware of this, but this side career whatever it is. You can do mainstream medicine and then add MPH. You can still do mainstream medicine and do some MBA in health economics so that you have dual major, whatever it is. So never ever forget to develop a side career, something that you can say, at least I'll be able to do. And it does not have necessarily to be related to medicine. You can even do business, selling tumba. Now that's the main topic in the political agenda. Then finally, give back to the society. That's my final point. And this is very, very important. And you can give it back in a lot of ways, not necessarily financially. You can participate in a medical camp. I don't know these days it will sound, I'm not very sure to be honest, if you guys organize medical camps, but people used to organize extremely aggressively. And one of the biggest backup we used to get was from some students. It was quite helpful. You can even join a local mosque, a local CBO, community-based organization, a local NGO. You can even volunteer to join UN. UN has got a program where they bring on board volunteers. Volunteerism is not a well-known culture in the African setting. I'm sure you have seen a lot of guys from the Western world who are coming to rotate. So volunteerism is extremely important because the stepping stone. That's how we try to network. That's how we try to connect to people. You can even volunteer to give a talk in a mosque. We have started under this gentleman's chairmanship a program. Right now we are giving some talks in the mosques in the city, especially cardiovascular diseases, oral health, pediatrics, obstetrics. We just invite a doctor. We just stand in front of the congregation, just tell them what is hypertension. That is even more than enough. That's a form of giving back to the society. Because it also makes you feel like now you have learned something and you're delivering. Because it's not only sitting behind a desk and prescribing ACE inhibitors. It's a bigger picture. It's a global public health prevention. So I think those are my 5 points. I will leave it here. Definitely we'll have much more interactions. I spoke with the vice chairman, and inshallah with time I'll be able to deliver some talks, especially medicine related now, pure medicine, see philosophy, you know, the real stuff, ECG and whatever, any other internal medicine topic. But for now, it's my pleasure to invite Abraham, who is one of the, I can call him mentee sort of. He will give us basically an overview of what next in terms of your career development. He's a consultant physician, and I'm happy now he's doing Mayo Clinic, which is one of the most prestigious institutions in the US. But inshallah, after his talk, we'll have interaction if you have any questions. And thank you so much.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Am I audible enough?
Yes.
So my name is Abdurrahim Asif. I was introduced by Dr. Hassan. Dr. Hassan is my senior colleague. So we used to run after him to try and teach us ECGs when we were undergrad. We were doing his residency. And I was one of the few Muslim residents around that time. I think by now there are so many Muslim residents. Personally, one of the things I discovered is I have siblings who are also into different disciplines in health medicine. And through them, I noticed one interesting thing is we start this career without really a lot of clear things. And the assumption is, as you continue to the career, things should fall in place. Unfortunately, they don't do so for most of us, because everything is supposed to happen at a given point in time. So one of the things I found which was a bit shortcoming in our system is mentorship. The way I understood mentorship as an undergrad is very different from the way I understand mentorship now. But at what cost? It has mentorship means and how to use it from a very young age. We are brought up in a system whereby you're not meant to question, you're not meant to challenge, you're not meant to ask. how is the medicine course? As an intern, I'll tell them, it's good you joined. And they'll be like, but now I'm hearing it's 6 years. So we never understood why it's 6 years, and I guess most of you don't still know why it's 6 years. So it's part of the system. You're not meant to ask why. Now, mentorship, in my opinion, may not necessarily mean being held by the hand and being taken into a discipline. No. Mentorship, in my opinion, is something totally different. It just means you being given the information, number one. The information will empower you. Once you're empowered, you're able to align what you can do best. That is the whole essence of mentorship. It's not saying I'm attached to Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, no. Because I remember in undergrad, I was given a mentor in the Department of Anesthesia. Very good mentor, but obviously in the times we meet, he will take me to the canteen at the hospital. I'll be given a lot of chicken and rice, but nothing came out of it. When I finished my internship, we had parted ways, and to me, I realized now it was an issue of just being physically fixed to an individual. The individual may not have all the time to align you. So whose role is it to identify the strengths and weaknesses? It is your own role, unfortunately. And now that's where the difference comes in. Some of us may take a few years to understand these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses in the clinical medicine world. And some of you may take a bit longer. Now, the interesting thing about mentorship is it's give and take. It's nurturing a mentor-mentee relationship. So the whole idea of the mentor is to guide the mentee in telling him, I think you're good in this, you can try this, you don't seem to be good in this. That doesn't mean to disappoint you or to put you down. So in a way, it's just trying to tell you, from where I'm standing, I'm able to see you having strengths in this area. So as Dr. Hassan mentioned, not all of you will specialize in clinical medicine. Some of you may even start and live in the middle. But the whole aspect of mentorship is to avoid such things. You don't want to be going into disciplines and then 3-4 years down the line is when you wake up and realize, why did it take me this long to realize I don't really fit in here? So the role of mentorship is to prepare you well in advance with all the necessary information so that you know where you're heading. At the same time, our system and curriculum is a bit different. I did my residency training in Uganda. And that's where I met all the big mentors and did a lot of stuff, because undergrad here there's nothing much to do. One thing which surprised me is in the Ugandan system, the medical students who join are people who have gone through an A level. So in Uganda, once you finish your Form 4, it's O level. You don't join medicine directly, you have to do A level. So the A level is divided into a science-oriented component where they do biological sciences and an arts-oriented thing. So a person who's finishing Form 4, who was the person of being a teacher, will end up in the arts. If you are science-oriented, you do biological science, and still they will sift you through and select the best. So in a way, their system is a bit superior compared to ours, although they may seem to be a bit outdated. So the kids who end up in the undergrad class may be a bit older than the Kenyan counterparts, maybe 19-year-old, 20-year-old, but well-grounded in basic sciences. So concepts are easy to understand. Here, we all went through the same thing. I remember being threatened that we will be examining something called orbitals. And up to date, I've never understood what those orbitals are. What exactly they mean. And as a young student that time, the system did not allow you to think that things should be done differently. It was you either do it or you are out. Now, I'm not here to tell you we are going to change the system, but I'm here to tell you you have the capacity to change how you view things. And how does that start? You trying to identify what you align with. First and foremost, try and gather all the necessary information. The thing I want to highlight is when you were undergrad, we found it a bit, you felt shy asking people, what does a cardiothoracic surgeon do? What is interventional cardiology? Because you thought that is a question you should ask when you're a medical officer. I don't think that's the case. Those questions can be asked now, as early as second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. By the time you are finishing, you have an idea of where you're heading. So before I go to the USMLE aspect, I want to tell you there are so many medical training pathways. I'm not here to tell you that I'm going to give you the system that you should all join. No. Mine is just to provide information and in a way empower you. The medical training pathways, one of them Dr. Hassan mentioned, is the German one, there's the Australian one, there's the UK one, there's the US one, and many more are coming up. There's a lot more in the Middle East. So at the end of the day, it is you, once you have the information, to decide where you want to go. Now, feedback is something that's very key. And feedback can be of two forms. It can be a systemic feedback, a feedback coming from the system or the institution, or it can be a feedback coming from you as an individual. You can try and get information that can help you improve. So maybe by show of hands, did any one of you fill a feedback form this semester on any lecture given or any exam done? Was there any feedback form which was filled? So as a student who did the tropical medicine course with the London School and Hygiene of Tropical Medicine, we did the East African course. I used to ask myself, why are they giving us feedback forms after every lecture? And the feedback forms has an assessment of the presenter. Can you imagine how much a student has been empowered to decide whether a presenter will be coming back for the next day to teach or not? Is that the case here? No. Which means you don't have a say. Therefore, the only thing you can do is improve yourself and ask, you ask yourself, how can I identify my weaknesses and strengths? The other thing is the approach to medical knowledge. I had a junior sibling, a sibling of mine who's younger than me, who some time back told me to explain to him some concepts in microbiology and pathology. And one thing I noticed is he was exactly going through the same mistakes we went through. The MCQ paper he came with is a paper which I'm also still struggling to answer some of the questions. Almost so many years down the line. And I felt for him because what they were basically asking are factual information. And let me tell you, if you have 10 pieces of factual information, if you know 10 causes of hypercalcemia, but a student who knows only 3 causes, has those 3 causes integrated in a medical context, is much more superior than you. Factual knowledge means nothing if it is not integrated. So what does the system here teach us? It teaches us to make what we call loose associations. So you go into exam saying, if you see this, you look out for this. That's something called loose associations. It doesn't take you far as a good clinician. And therefore, it makes logic to say there are some institutes in the world, you do medicine for 4 years and you still produce very strong doctors, than a system which does medicine for 6 years and still produce people who are still not really confident with what they want to do. It all boils down to the approach. Now, my quest to do the Usmle and try and get fellowship training or further training came at a time when I realized mentorship is lacking not only at an undergraduate level, but at a postgraduate level and even beyond. So if you think you are lacking mentorship today, I think you are not thinking right. Even in residency, it's still going to reach you. So what's the solution? The solution is you now trying to get all the information you need beforehand so that you can empower yourself and make decisions that you will not regret at the end. Now, you guys are aware that the Usmle exam is an exam that's done worldwide. Everyone who does it is doing it in the quest of trying to go and do a residency training, isn't it? But now one interesting thing I found out was that it gives you a sneak peek into how medicine is taught differently in the developed world. For example, let me just go back to the sample questions I was talking about. The typical questions I did as an undergrad was one-liner. But then what happens? There are how many options? 5. And during our time, I remember some of the questions are negative marking. You really have to think wisely. You really answer it as true or false, it was negative or half. And you'll be surprised, the bright student did not use to top those charts. It was the students who were using intelligence to know when to attend and when not to attend. I remember one of the physiology papers we did, it had I think 50 questions and there were 5 options. So those are 250 responses. Can you imagine? 250 responses that you either mention as true or false. So towards the end, if you think you were smart and you did not want to risk, you actually realize you have not even answered hard questions. You've attempted maybe 150 or 130. You are barely on the brink of saying, I think if I get a 50, I'll be lucky. Now, I don't think learning should be like that. Learning should be in a way that you are given pointers. The pointers are designed to make you think. When you think and integrate, you come to the solution. For example, if I tell you the following are causes of fever, except, those are questions which are asking for factual information. A will be pneumonia, B will be UTI, C will be malignancy, and the like, till E. So you are basically asking yourself one-sided question. Does malignancy cause fever or not? So if you've not known that, now you go to the next one. Does pneumonia cause fever or not? You understand the type of learning I'm talking about. It's not an integrative level of learning. It's just factual, yes, no, true, false. You understand? So it's made the system look like you just want to clear and go. But there's a lot of fun in medicine. If you really want to do it slowly, there's a lot of fun. So let me twist the question and put it in another way. If I give you the age of a patient and tell you it is a 40-year-old, 2 weeks history of a cough, and he has night sweats. So what are you guys thinking of? So what has happened? You have pointers. You're establishing loose associations initially that fever for almost 2 weeks, plus cough, plus night sweats. It's like, I don't know how to explain to you. The rosary. The rosary we use. If it has 3 beads and I tell you to keep it somewhere, and one student chooses to keep it in the pocket, and the other student says, can you please help me with the string? Then what he does is puts all the beads on the string, then ties the string and puts it in the pocket. Who is likely to retain and retrieve that bead?
The string.
So the string is what the West are doing. And putting the 3 beads in the pocket is what we are doing in our system. So you wake up this morning, you realize one has disappeared. You can't find it. So what they do is the associations are there, but that system allows you to train in a way you retrieve the whole thing. You have 1 or 2 reminders or 2 pointers, you connect and retrieve the whole thing. Why am I saying that? The USMLE exams was quite a surprise to me. When I did my step 1, I was just asking myself, these kids up there doing this as a second year or a third year, they must be handling an incredible amount of information. But then I discovered, who are the people setting the exams? These are the same people who come to teach them in a class like this. So from the start go, the model they're using enables them to perform in a way which is easy. When we have to now go through that again, trust me, you have to do something called unlearning and de-learning, and then you learn afresh again. So, let me go to the example of biochemistry. We did biochemistry in undergrad. All of you have done biochemistry. Is there any clinical aspects you remember about the biochemistry? So, is it safe to say for the first year, most of you are training to do an MSc course in biochemistry? Literally, for the first year you're a biochemist, then you cease being a biochemist, then you join microbiology. Why am I bringing that point? Clinical biochemistry is what they teach and what they test. It's easy to remember, easy to make links, easy to now understand diseases better and even project what a disease looks like. After the first step, went on to the second step, did the OET, and I'll just come to the journey quickly now. Towards the end, I discovered one thing. If you are given knowledge in a way which is palatable, you are more likely to enjoy it, you are more likely to produce it. If you get information in a way which is not palatable, you don't want to enjoy it again. It's like giving you a meal you don't want. Now, is there a way things can be modified? Absolutely, it's there. We have this thing called the template that if a pharmacology lecturer comes here and he or she is dictating word for word, we still have the audacity to also start writing word by word. Only when you go back to your room is when you realize all along this information was in Kazuma. That's double tragedy. At least you will have listened more and written nothing. But then, if that is the way we adopted, we started adopting that during our undergrad because we realized the information they're giving is a bit crude. So who needs to do the refining? It's you. So for those students who do the refining, they end up loving the subject. For those who remain with the crude information, you will lose it. You don't like the subject, and before you know it, you just want to clear medicine and go for this thing they call internship. Before you know it, you may even quit medicine and be a sales agent somewhere. Because you may not have been given the opportunity to identify how to digest and absorb that information and use it for your own purpose. Now, I'll just quickly go to the journey itself. USMLE stands for United States Medical Licensing Exam. And basically, I'm here not to specifically tell you what I did or what I should have done. No. It's just to demystify the few things that I heard about USMLE when I was an undergrad and how things were different when I got this information much later down the line. So, it's formally 3 parts. And the friends I meet, and these are doctors who also finish, so sometimes they'll be like, oh, you got this thing. So you did all these 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. So they just mentioned 1, 2, 3. So it's become a monotony thing. People already know that it's not really 1, 2, 3 as such. It used to be 1, then there are how many 2s? 2, and then 3. So step 1 is basic sciences. This is where they grill you on microbiology, biochemistry, immunology, genetics. This is the core of medicine. So the students down there, up there, are designed to do this exam at the end of their 2nd year. And their degree is how many years? But believe you me, most of them are people who have done something called a pre-medical degree. So they don't come direct from high school. In a way, they're coming with a bit of a mature mind. But again, in 2 years, you've done all the basic sciences, you sit for step 1. You get done with step 1. Step 2 has 2 components. Step 2, CK, which is also known as clinical knowledge. And step 2, CS, which is also known as clinical skills. You guys are aware, step 2 CS was scrapped off. So maybe the pandemic came with a blessing in disguise. Because 2 CS was not accessible to any one of us. You had to find a way of going there. And we all know the logistical challenges of going there and what can happen if you don't get a visa and all that. 2 CS was scrapped, now 2 only remain on 1 component, 2 CK, clinical knowledge. This is the equivalent of where most of you guys are now. You're going to the wards, right? Seeing patients. That's CK, clinical knowledge. But trust me, it's bound on the knowledge of step 1. It forms the core. So you'll see people telling you, I want to do step 2 CK first, then 1. Most people advise, get the 1 done first, get your grounding, lay it very well, then add on. Step 2 CS was scrapped. In its place, they put what? Anyone who knows?
An English exam.
An English exam, yes, called OET. Again, when you're going for these English exams, actually you realize doing an English exam is not as easy as you thought. So you literally ask yourself, what have I been doing in medical school and the graduate training program in Kenya? What's not adding up? And then you realize out there things are very competitive. But it's not that you are not up to the task, it's only that you are being given piecemeal information and your energy is not being redistributed into the right focus early on. You're beating around the bush all along. By the time you reach the end, you're a bit fatigued and tired. You just take things the way they come. Now, once the OET is done, someone or a candidate who is an IMG, an international medical graduate, is eligible to apply for something called ECFMG certification. It's a bit confusing. It also confused me at the start, not understanding what exactly ECFMG wanted, but this is literally the body which governs your exams from day 1 till the time you march in different levels. It has different names under it, but it's just ECFMG. Who can do USMLE? Any medical doctor, any medical student, any medical specialist. You get the point? I thought it can only be done by medical officers or interns. That's not the case. If you're a medical student, you're eligible to sit for step 1 and step 2 CK. That's where it ends, an OET. You're not able to do step 3, which is only done in the US. And step 3 is more of the licensing exam. Once you do it, it's like the equivalent of doing an exam that will give you the KNPDC license, where you can start moonlighting or doing what we call locums, or even a normal job. Now, this journey does not just mean I'm here to go to the exam. No, you should have a focus. The idea is, what else am I aiming for? Am I planning to improve my level of knowledge? That is a big bonus that people actually realize when they start doing this journey. Am I also hoping to get a good residency training program, which is a dream come true for most people who work on this journey? And the whole idea is you just want to train in a system that will allow you to do your best. You get the point? Dr. Hassan is our senior, he did his residency training here. I did my residency training in Uganda, but one thing I can tell you is there's nothing wrong with the residency system here. It's just designed in a way that once you finish residency, you are all by yourself. You get the point? You will wake up one morning and realize my dream is actually to become, let's say, a particular specialty, gastroenterologist. Then realize it's not available around. It's not available in Eastern Central Africa. Then the first point you Google, South Africa. Wow. That's when you realize these specialties are not available here. This is information not shared to most doctors when they're joining residency. The assumption is join residency, then you have this dream that one day you'll go for fellowship in the UK. There is no way you'll go for fellowship in the UK. These systems are cagey, they are closed. Why are they protected? It's for their own good, because they want to sustain the quality of their education. So what do? They have all these blocks in exams, requirements to be overcome. So for someone who has all these expectations, when you tell them suddenly, you want to become a gastro, yes, you may actually end up realizing half the people don't even do the fellowship in the long run. Why? You have a family here, you have kids to take care of, you have a mom to provide for, you are tied down. It's not that you're not available to do the fellowship, but is it available? So people want to rush into systems to try and get the best, and maybe when you come back, you're totally free to do what you want. Cardiology was started in Aga Khan, and Dr. Hassan is one of the pioneers. And the issue at hand right now is the medical pathways are out there. So it is you to sit down and ask yourself, how much do I know about the USMLE pathway? How much do I know about the UK-based pathway? And that's why the mentorship program, I'm hoping, inshallah, will invite other speakers who have more profound knowledge on these other pathways than some of us who came here today. I have colleagues who went through the UK system, did MRTP, and they will share a lot of information with you. The pros and cons are things you can check online. But remember also to put your values into perspective. Are you a person who wants a career that is very simplified? You can do MPH. And the MPH here may not give you a lot of opportunities, but the MPH out there may involve you in research and something else. The MPH and global health is powerful. Don't mess around with them. And as a resident, I'm like, I see a co-resident listing from US. They're like, they're doing global medicine. I'm like, what the hell is global medicine? Why don't we choose somewhere to specialize? Little did I know that down the line, global medicine means something big. People are investing in all this preventative medicine and the like. So, the information is out there, but it will come to you at a different time. So is there a way you can expedite and get this information beforehand? Yes, you have to be actively searching for it. And I hope this forum will help demystify the few pathways we're going to discuss, inshallah. Now, there are a few questions maybe I'll just try and quickly answer. In a way, to be answering the questions you will have asked me. Step 1 now has shifted from a numerical score to pass-fail. You guys are aware, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it good or bad? Bad. Many people argue it's not good. I personally feel it's not good. Why? It's a way they're using to reduce the number of IMDs applying to come to the US. When they make step 1 not a numerical score, and they just tell you you can pass or fail, trust me, somewhere else are other requirements coming up. And one of them is the step 2 CK becomes the numerical score requirement. Step 2 CK is clinical. Most of the people do pass. But where does the catch come for the IMG like me and you? Now, the undergrad system in the US, the students are exposed to research. People are interpreting data. When I finished my undergrad here, research was still novel. And I remember a physician who used to harass me. I did my internship in Nanyuki. And he asked me, what's the latest guideline? So I remember I was staying in a single room and I had to use my Safaricom line to port to my laptop. And I'm just Googling like the normal layman. What is the latest guideline? Trust me, these are things you've gone through. And then when I went into formal residency, I was told there's something called search engines. There's Medline, there's PubMed, there's a lot going on. The search engine has a way you as the doctor should search for the item as opposed to the layperson. So whenever I will look up the thing, literally I will get information that the layperson gets. And like, which year was that? I'm not recalling, which year did this page right? Because I was using Google. Now, when they do research in their residency, it counts as one of the key components in being considered for a residency program. If you have the highest scores but no research, it's a bit hard to really crack that system. And they have designed it in that way intentionally. Now, I'm not telling you that you wake up this morning and write a letter recommending to the dean, we need a research course to be introduced. No. That's a dream which may be the pipeline that may come some years down the line. While every system is unique with its own benefits and other challenges. The other component I want to address, one is the scores, 2 is research, 3 is something called LOR. Does anyone know what LOR means? Letter of recommendation. Now, letters of recommendation are letters written commending you for further training in a particular specialty. It should be written by one of your key authors. The key authors should be the same people you've worked with them in a capacity or so, whereby they know you. They know this is so and so. I've worked with them in that capacity. These are their strengths. The interesting bit is, you don't need the LORs to specifically come from international physicians. No. Local physicians who have trained you in the capacity of the university can write you, but of course they will not have a similar strength to the ones outside. Recommendations are, they require 3 to 4 LORs, letters of recommendation. So, when I finished this journey, I realized that, unfortunately in my case, I've never gone to the US. So what happened? It is residency that was the defining moment. You work with people, you really have to work your ass off. And trust me, a lot of my analogies and associations changed when I came back. When people tell you we work very hard here, trust me, people are working there twice. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a good thing because people sacrifice too much out there. I think they forget some of their values of life. Maybe I shall catch on later. You realize there are things you enjoy in Africa that you will dearly miss when you go out there. And one of the concerns I had when I was mentioning to colleagues is, for example, praying Friday prayers. We take it for granted here. People out there don't even get to pray Friday prayers. Because you may find you're the only Muslim in the whole class. You may take a break and just pray a normal salah. Because I've met residents who are finished and people are like, okay, these are the big plus, but by the way, know about these negatives. I'm not here to discuss the negatives and tell you you will miss this, but it's important for you to have an insight. You may be a scholar, you may be a person having other missions in life, so that's where your value comes in. It's not about saying, I wake up one morning, I want to do the USMLE, I want to do IMA, and like, no. It's a long thing. It's the way Hassan mentioned. Be very flexible and dynamic. Get the information and keep revising it. So we discussed who can take the exam, we discussed the components, scores, letters of recommendations, research. Now, with all those, you apply. I realized one thing. In Africa, the countries where people really apply from are Nigeria. Nigeria is quite advanced, even though I've watched a lot of clips from Nigeria. They don't all seem to be painting good pictures. But again, I realized this country is also generating a lot of competitive doctors, marching and going. Nigeria is generating a lot of doctors going out there. Egypt is doing the same. South Africa, they're a good number. Funny enough, in Africa, there are very few countries that really generate good numbers that go and march. Where do the bulk come from? India and Pakistan. Those countries are advanced, let me tell you. Their kids are bright because their systems have just been engineered in a way that by the time you finish, you should be on your level joining other competitions worldwide. Now, when you apply, one of the things you may Google is, what is the success rate with matching in this rotation or in this specialty? It's a bit disappointing to say that the numbers fluctuate, but a general rule of thumb is doctors or students trained in the US system do match in 92 times or 92% of the times. So what does that mean? if we are somewhere in the US and we are 100 students here, 92 of us will match. But when you come to the IMG scenario, the International Medical Graduate, it's a different story. So if we are 100, 50 here, 50 here, this group may match, this group may not match. So the latest match statistics was at 58%. What does that mean? For every 100 IMGs who invested, did the exams, did whatever research they did the letters of recommendations, went for the interviews, only 58 of them will match. 42 have to try again next year. And where does the challenge come in? If you picture this as an exam of just saying, I have a high score in step 1, and you're over the clouds and saying, I think things are good, it's not always the case. So how do you picture this? Think of it as a marathon and not a sprint. Because I know people who started the Usmle journey, my own colleagues, stopped it in the middle. The journey is a bit gruesome, it's long, it really needs patience. The beauty about the Usmle thing is, it can be done literally almost any time of the year. Worse is the MRCP, done on only specific times of the year. It's available in Kenya, it's a bit costly. Each exam may cost you close to $1,000 US, just the exam. So step 1 is an 8-hour exam. You walk into the examination center at 8 a.m., you walk out at 4 p.m. You have 1 hour of rest and 7 hours of being graded by that computer. So you do a total of 280 questions. Rumors are that 80 of the questions are not calculated in the final score. So there are questions they're always using to test the pool. So students who write on blogs, they'll be like, oh, my exam was terrible, but let me pray and hope the 50 I flagged were just experimental questions. So that's the hope we all have when we do this exam. What does the exam test? Knowledge or content, integration. When things are integrated, we retrieve them faster. So they also by default are testing pace, speed. You understand? And lastly, stamina. When was the last time you guys did a 3-hour exam? So your corticotropic axis is over the roof. And when I was doing my step 2 CK, I met an Ethiopian guy. There is no examination center in the whole of Ethiopia. So we flew in from Addis Ababa the night before. We just met in the exam, and this is the weird part. We met in the washroom. So the exam was such that you do a block, and the computer asks you, do you want to continue the next block, or you want to take a break? Because it knows how long the thing is. If you say yes, you don't wake up from that for another hour. So you will do 2 blocks, you realize you are getting fatigued. So I realized by the time we were on the 5th block, he was going out a lot. Unfortunately, he didn't sleep on the previous night. He had just traveled in. He had Red Bull washing his head all the time. The exam can give you serious anxiety. So the assumption of saying I have the knowledge, it's not about the knowledge. The exam thing is a totally different animal. So you need to practice based on stamina, knowledge, content, integration, pace, all those things. So what do I mean? It's not the kind of thing you start saying, I think I'll just do it. No, you really need to plan. You don't want to fail in this exam because it goes into your CV. 2, it costs a lot of money. So the question bank alone that we use to study for these exams costs almost 50,000 Kenyan shillings. So, for example, if any one of you wants to do step 1 today, registration alone will be $150. The exam is almost $1,000. The question bank is almost $500. So that's $1,650 for 1 step. So that's why I have to highlight this, so that you start the journey with a plan in mind. 2, remember it's a marathon. No one has said you have to do step 1 today and do step 2 tomorrow. You have up to 7 years to complete. And what's the caveat? What is the downside to that? When you are filling in your CV, they don't like seeing something called the gap years. You understand what I mean by gap years? Let's say this class will finish this year. If you are able to apply and do the exam, then a medical officer who has been out for 5 years, you, the junior, stands a better chance of being matched. That's the interesting bit. Contrary to that, here, we feel like the more you're out there, the more experienced you are. Things are a bit tricky. And I remember when we were applying for residency, some of the rumors would be, how many years have you been an MO? And then you're like, less than 2 years. No, you should go back and stay another year or two, at least come back when you're experienced. Now, the same batch of guys who are coming back late, I had in some of the interviews here, they were being told you're too old to be educated. Too old to be trained. So the point I'm trying to pass here is, when you go for your internship, whether you end up doing the USMLE or not, please, personally, I'm not of the opinion that you get what we call a dead space or a dead time. What do I mean by dead time? You become a general practitioner with nothing else going on. It's not fine. It's not safe for you. It's not safe for your career prospects. If you have done nothing else but done residency, they may consider it. But will you believe one thing? When I did my application, I did not use my residency documents. I did not use my diploma in tropical medicine. None of those is important to these guys. What is important? MBCHB. So when you're applying, remember the registrar in the ward and you are at the same level. In fact, he's at more task to explain what happened between when he finished undergrad and when he was doing residency. It's ridiculous. So in a way, they're also stemming old people. They don't want old guys. But where do the old guys come in? People with PhDs, people who have done impactful research. So research is where they can't pin you down. And now where do you get the research? Does anyone of you here participate in a research project in the university? Is anyone of you in a research project? It's unfair. We all deserve to be aware of the research projects happening at the university. But trust me, these are things now you have to go out of your way to do it. So the advice I was giving some of my colleagues, who were some of the students I was teaching in undergrad in Uganda, was some of the ways you can beat this system is you can try and apply and go in the capacity of elective. But find the information first. The electives which are free, the electives which are paid for. There are research training positions which are paid for, there are research training positions which are free. Trust me, opportunities are there, but they come out in a way that it's not easy to tease out this information. So students can go in a different visa capacity, stay in the US for 6 months, do external rotations in 2 universities. But if you live here as the foreign doctor, you are not going out there to do anything else. You're going out there to bolster the research that is missing back home, and to identify people who will write for you what? The LOR, the letter of recommendation. Such that when you come back, the pressure is a bit less. So in a nutshell, what I'm telling you is, if you have a student, so the average scores for step 1, I'll try and finish in the next 5 minutes. The average scores for step 1 is 230. Good scores, 240. 250, excellent. 260, outstanding. Let's compare 2 students. And I'm giving these real life examples. If you have a student who has stellar step 1 score, let's say 260. Stellar step 2 score, 260. No research, no good letter of recommendation. On the other hand, you have a student who has step 1 score 240, step 2 score 230 something. He has 1 research published, or he has been a co-author, or he has good letters of recommendations. Who's more likely to match? The second student. So what am I trying to tell you? It's not about the scores. When you plan for this journey, you plan for all the steps in advance. I know I'm doing step 1, but at some point in step 2, for heaven's sake, I have to participate in a research somewhere. I have to have my name somewhere. Because that's what these people do. They don't assume University of Nairobi doesn't teach research. They'll be like, wow, his scores are good, but unfortunately, they'll have to just sieve you. So, and that's how they make money. So in our program, they shortlisted, they had over 900 applicants. They shortlisted 90. They have a 10% rule. So imagine what happens with the other 90. You've applied, made money, investment, your CV is just taken down to the drain. And the anxiety about it is, these systems are not designed to give you feedback. They'll only tell you when you have put in an interview somewhere. Now, in itself, this journey will require you to make a firm decision as to whether you really want to do it or not. My aim today is not to let any one of you go home and say, I just want to start this journey. No. My aim was just to empower you in a way that you have the information at hand, and you can say, am I in the position to do this exam? Am I financially capable? Are my timelines okay? Am I able to organize for a few things outside? If most of the things are yes, good to go. If most of the things are not, it does not in any way reduce your chances as well. But you need to get information which is well balanced across all the sectors. Number two, the knowledge you acquire from the USMLE will build you to be a better doctor. So tell me, when you're doing step 1, you have to go through a question bank called UWAL. You guys have UWAL. UWAL is like the Bible. They mention it like the Bible of USMLE. If you don't do UWAL, you don't need to go to Residency. So UWAL, step 1 has more than 4,000 questions. And these questions, they grill you from all corners. It's like a form of military training, a mental military training. So once you've done it, it doesn't matter whether you end up in the US or not. You've built your knowledge base in a different level. So I'm not saying the USMLE is strictly, I must go to the US. No. It's recognized in other systems as well. So these are things you can look up on Google and find out where else can I apply my certificate of skills. You understand? Now, I've discussed most of the pros. The few other pros I will add is residency in the US, they give you, I don't want to call it a salary. Let me just call it a stipend. They give you a stipend, and of which more than half will be consumed by the house. That's how systems are designed there. So residents are among the lowest earners when it comes to the pay per hour thing. You and a plumber who's earning $13 are probably the same. He's probably earning more than you for that point in residency, because it's a system that will allow you to finish and then progress. Now, residency locally, you have to pay, isn't it? How much are people currently paying?
600.
600K. So it shows you, even students here, the information that's of interest to you will be determined by the politics around. So most of you now know that residency here is 600,000, but you may not be aware of other stuff that also needs to be important. How many people are now able to risk and come here without a paid leave? Very few. So what harm do you get if I finish my internship, I have a few coins to save, just try and get these exams done, remain hopeful, look up for research projects, talk to Cambridge, push in your CV in a way you just generate something, get the residency in. For heaven's sake, I have a colleague, she's from Uganda. I used to teach her when she was an undergrad. She got one interview. You're approaching marriage, I'm not telling you a lie. She got one interview, and that's the only institution she matched into. Incredible. Those are things we just call magic, or whatever you call it, or miracle, or because she couldn't believe it. Now the IMG, you have to get at least 10 interviews for you to stand a good chance of matching. You get the point? Now, going into residency will allow you two things. It gives you a stipend. Of course, if your cost of living was very high even in Kenya, then no one can stop you. You will end up struggling there as well. So living simple and basic at all costs is always safe for you, because it's a way you learn about how to live. Once you finish residency, it allows you to continue into what? After residency? Fellowship. Now this is the catch. You can't go for fellowship directly in the US, especially it's a clinical fellowship. And I'll tell you why. The people who get fellowship are the same residents before they finish residency. So where do you come in now as a foreign doctor from Kenya who just wants to join fellowship? They don't, trust me. The people living here, let them not lie to you. They're going there in observership capacity. They will come back here and show you images of Stanford and Emory here and tell you this way I've been. When it comes to clinical practice, touching a patient, taking care of them, making decisions, you must have gone through the residency system. These are things I discovered much later on, but I'm honored to share with you guys in advance so that you know. Because I also thought the same. When I finished residency, I think I should go for a neurology fellowship for 2 years. Wow, there's nothing like that. So I think I'll sum up at this point. And my interest is just to ensure find that this group is maintained. There will be other speakers coming. And as I summarize, I'll mention one thing about my colleague, Dr. Mohammed. I've brought in Dr. Mohammed as well, and most of you may not have met him. He's a colleague we've known for each other for several years. Why I brought him on board is mentorship is a component that is considered extracurricular. He's doing a lot of projects, community-based healthcare awareness, community-based teaching. Mentorship was an arm I discussed with him, and we also thought about it. And how best it can be engineered from the right population going out. So its capacity will be more technical. We can find other ways of collaborating with him as well. As Msaunke makes the same way you collaborate with your sponsors when doing camps. You may also need your services at some point, because what he's doing are community-based Muslim projects. So it's a way also to give and take. So sorry for taking long, but I just wanted to make sure I give you guys all the salient features of this plan. It's out there, but at least now you can go home with information which you can choose to refine further, you can choose to put in the dustbin. Because you may have other goals and missions as well. So thank you.
Assalamu alaikum once again. That has been a very informative session, mashallah. We really cannot find enough actually. I hope in the future we will have actually more sessions. So briefly, because of the interest of time, we invite Dr. Mohammed to say a few words, and then we will take questions.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I'm a chronic emo for almost now 8 years going. Well, I'm here to tell you it was too much information to actually digest, and I think the idea of having an open mind is necessary, right? Backwards for each individual here is different, and the same way Dr. Abdurrahim has said, that is not the thing that he is advocating for you to do, is not what, but having the information out here. In fact, I have met Abdurrahim a long time ago, but this is the first time I'm hearing about Usmle and how he is going into details. A lot of things I didn't know. So I'm among the people who ask me, one or three. Well, that was the concept. But then, going back to practice, things were different. I'll share with you some few issues, and I don't want to take time. First, patient care. I think this issue of, you have to be perfect, the best doctor, and, you are treating, last night you were in a CME, hypertension and facts and,
habits.
Yeah, and the habits of hypertension. And one of the speakers was asking me, only treating a patient for the condition, right? So a lot of people actually say this is the condition. When in reality, it's this patient. So the complications and the risk factors is what you're treating. We started talks in one of the mosques in Bidana Mosque. 1 year now down the line, I was touched by the patients I've been seeing continuously. So you get a patient with hypertension, per se, and he doesn't even understand what hypertension is. You tell him these medications, he asks you questions like, these medications, nitaendelea forever. You tell him yes, kuna mtishamba jamaa somewhere, I can stop it at some point, and the guy comes back with stroke. So I was tired with these recurrent conditions that were just coming. Then I summoned a lot of doctors, we were almost 9 doctors, and asked them, what have you done? You are waiting for that patient to come to your office, coming back with complications, but have you gone out of that office to the patient? So those were the things that really triggered me when it comes to community-based organization, kind of, coming back to the communities. And it made it's relieving, and it is giving. It's like sadaqah. It heals, yeah. It's part of healing. When you're giving out, you're healing yourself. It's not that you're enriching somebody else. You're healing yourself. It's for you. So a few things I want to talk about when it comes to you as the students. I went into internship in Mamalusi. 1 year down the line, I was the senior, at that time the lead apparently for the interns. Nobody expected me to get weeks. You guys understand what weeks are, eh? Like, yes, that's a kind of punishment. Like, you are not satisfied with you, you're getting more weeks. So we'll keep you here for like 6 weeks. So nobody was expecting that. So I went in, everybody's been given their books. Some are happy, some we already knew they're getting weeks. And I go in, I come out, I'm being told, hey, Mohammed, we just want to keep you for 6 weeks. Nobody told me the reason. It was in pediatrics, it was horrible. Why? Because I didn't understand. What did I do? I mean, I was trying to be on my toes, I read a lot. But then, 2 weeks down the line, I still don't know what to change. So I'm still doing the same thing that I was doing. Then I asked the senior more, hey, doc, I don't understand. This person was told she's poor in dehydration, she has to read a bit. This other person, there were conversions, she needs to fine tune. And I don't know what I did. She told me, you are too close to the consultants. Do you understand being too close to the consultants, what it means? You didn't fear them. So going close in the sense that I felt responsible to be in between the consultants and the interns. So I ended up having information. I go and ask, Doc, what are we supposed to do? A, B, C, D, we're having this challenge and this challenge. Without fear, though, but respect. So I told them, is that what you guys, I trained in Russia, so I didn't start with that. There's the openness of the mind, right? So you can ask. The more you ask, actually, the more you're tolerated. The more you get marks just for that. So they have this continuous marking kind of a scheme where it actually, your exams will not matter if you didn't score well, including the manners, including how you're asking actively. Being an active student is what matters, not the exam. It's just a small percentage for the exams. So I come here with the same mentality, openness. Some people actually demanded fear. And that is what you guys, I think, are going through at some point. You're in a ward round. So I came for pre-internship, and everybody's going in the last row. Civilization kind of a thing. That kind of fear was not embedded in me, unfortunately. So it haunted me, apparently. And this, what confounds with this is one of our fellow, his name is Dr. Abdulkadir, who came here for residency in pediatrics. You know what he told me? Like, we go with that mentality from Russia, here you'll be humbled. Why? The guy was right. So the first few days, the lecturer is asking questions, he's answering. He's asking other questions, openness, right? But, that was it. And the guy actually was not able to pass a few things simply because then he kept his mouth shut. In other words, we are training robots. This is the way, no any other way, and the lies. What does that generate? The burnouts. Sorry, I'll get just some few seconds. The burnouts. You'll have negative energy. You'll just end up not even thinking outside the box. You'll be just in this box and that is it. And that is what we don't want. And hence now comes how do you solve that? Be just outgoing. You see, this is just too much stress. It is a lot. Don't go from here and then to the library and you're like, you see just jaundice in your dreams, you know? Let it not be so. Get out. Get refreshment. because I think that is the thing that rejuvenates you to create more energy, to go back and get the energy to pass. We are doing a lot of CBO kind of a thing. We understood that we are not, somebody is doing something differently, I'm doing something differently, but are we integrated? Are we having networking? We are not having that networking. So let's work together, inshallah. I wish you all the best.
Jazakallah khair for the wise words. I think today we are quite learning so much that we have not been realizing. So briefly, I will very fast go through a summary of what Dr. Hassan Abdurrahim and Muhammad have said. So Dr. Hassan mentioned something about spirituality, that inshallah we need to not forget who we are and put our effort in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, he so much emphasized on open-mindedness in the aspect of not just medicine but also in other aspects of life. He talked about being open-minded in following careers. He said something about following MBA, medical education. If you want to go into pharmacology, you can decide to go in bioinformatics, research, digital health. Briefly mentioned something about networking. He said a friend of his went into the CDC, and then mashallah, he was able to at least create more opportunities for others and actually bring them on board. So networking with our colleagues and also seniors and also juniors. So the last point he said was giving back to the society, that we are not just being trained to benefit ourselves and our close families. So just like what Dr. Muhammad is doing, and alhamdulillah, ourselves, we've been at least able to do a few things here and there. So yes, so giving back to the society as a society here and also individually back at home. Dr. Abdurrahim mentioned a lot, so I'm going to briefly mention them too. So Dr. Abdurrahim told us about, majorly he was to speak about Usmle. I think he's done quite some justice to it. Mentorship has been long overdue, and it's actually a give and take process. We are very much grateful. Actually, if we don't know this, but Dr. has been very passionate about coming here and actually giving this talk. So it's not very every day that you find someone who is actually giving all that effort to come in and give back to us. So we need to integrate our factual knowledge with our factual knowledge, so that we are able to come with clinical solutions. Usmle is a step, three steps. As we know, 3 steps, but it's not. So we said it's step 1, step 2, which is 2, and then step 3. There has been a bit of a replacement with OETs, and then we need to have a EAC SMG certification, and then the sports. So ideally that is pretty much it, and then it's not a marathon but a sprint. We need to really take our time to research, get to know what it is about, and actually prepare for it. Yes, so I'll go into the questions. We are really running out of time. So the first one is towards going to Dr. Hassan. What would you have done differently if you are doing your MDCHP today? It's quite a wide one, but
I will have been a governor. No, anyway, I mean, it's a very valid question. Honestly, personally, I've always been, enthusiastic about medicine. I will not have changed my clinical career. I've always wanted to be a clinical academician. But now I've started practicing as a farmer. I have a farm. And but the important point was, I wish I also got, the way Abdurrahim is saying, some kind of guidance. The guys we finished together as undergraduate, some of them, they went to UK. They have further subspecialized. Some of them, they are lecturers in universities in US. And everybody's happy with where he or she is. We are keeping in touch. But the bottom line is that rigidity of that time. I had that mentality of, let me finish medicine. I do this, I do this, I do that. Basically medicine. I was not looking left and right. But if I had the opportunity, I would have done everything I told you. I would have learned more languages. One of the countries I really wanted to go to is Germany, but of course, men are very poor in learning language. So I will not have done much different, but when I look back, I wish I had somebody who was guiding us. There were no people to guide. When we finished medicine, when I did my internship, before I finished, actually, I remember we got I got a posting letter to 3 hospitals. And today, I'm sure you all know this, a lot of doctors are jobless. And I don't want you guys to fall into that trap. This mentality of saying, I'll be a doctor, I'll specialize, those things are gone. It has lost its, whatever the prestige medicine used to have. And prestige doesn't help. It will not help you pay electricity, And unfortunately, Kenya, for example, is driven by politicians. I'm not belittling them, don't misunderstand me. But a class 8 liver who becomes an MCA will come and dictate to you in the hospitals. I was a physician in Isiolo for 6 years. But the people who are coming to lecture you are people even who don't understand the value of oxygen, for example. You want to procure oxygen, they will tell you, achana na oxygen, wacha tujenge hii ukuta kwanza. I'm serious. So you don't want to interact with such people, and I want you to really, really open your mind. Do anything possible so that you don't fall into that trap. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question is, when is the best time to seek for Usmle leave? Dr.
So I'll try to be very brief. The curriculum currently is 6 years here. I don't understand why it's 6 years. I feel like there's a lot of dead space, which is wasting students' time. But for step 1, I will advise it to be at least at 3rd year or 4th year. And remember, don't take it for granted. Their content is different. You'll be shocked. They teach those students something else. Step 2 can best be done pre-internship, before you go for internship, or immediately after internship. It all depends on your strengths and weaknesses. OET is an English exam. You can do it anywhere in the middle. But in the progress towards the end, plan both financially and psychologically to also apply for electives outside. Because that's where the tiebreaker is. If you manage the elective, you've cracked that code in a way. You may come back home after 3 months or 2 months with at least 2 letters of recommendations, and at least with some participation in research. Both will you much higher. So it's a gradual thing. Plan it out slowly. It may take you 3 years, it may take you 4 years. Everyone has his own timing. Don't compete with anyone. You may have your own goals set at a different pace.
This is quite a technical one. Can one travel with their family or spouse if they're going to study residency in the US? Can one travel with their family or spouse if they're going to study in the US?
Now, the unfortunate bit, and I didn't want to share this information because it's on a bad light. If you are a Muslim, number one, and you are male, it may not be as easy to secure a visa. So as I talk to you right now, sorry to share this, the US Embassy temporarily denied me a visa because my name is Abdurrahim or Abdurrahim, and I have to undergo something called administrative processing, which is more of a background security check, which can last anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. I really can't understand. So these are the tiny details I don't want to share and shadow the whole journey, but you will discover them down the line. You may even just apply for a simple B1, B2 visitor visa and have a step exam you're doing and can still be denied. So those are the downsides of this journey. I mean, WhatsApp groups of both Kenyans and Ugandans, and you wouldn't believe it. You can sometimes be given a visa under the most shoddy reasons, but denied a visa under the most classical reasons. So again, we are not taking it for granted. If you are a US citizen, it's a different story. If you are a Kenyan, the visa can allow you to go with your spouse and kids. The visa type you get if you match is either a J1 or a H1B. Who gets a H1B? Someone else who has been to the US and done step 3. So for some of us who have never gone there, we've never done step 3, I'm yet to do it. So I'm only eligible to get J1. It's renewed every year, and if you risk coming back to Kenya, you may delay continuing your studies. So that's the bad side of this visa thing. It's a bit restricted, but let it not shadow the journey that you guys are planning to take.
Last one on the USMLE. How does the removal of the pass-fail system affect? Does it affect the IMGs?
So the pass-fail system, let me tell you, pound for pound, I felt that IMGs were brighter than the local US students. I've seen guys who score marks in the 99th percentile. They actually come from the Middle East, from countries like Jordan and Syria, which is under war. You'll be shocked, brilliant guys. I don't know how which system they're trained in. But as an IMG, you always start with the negative. So that's why this journey needs what? Patience. You are first willing to be at the same level with them, then start the life again. So it's something which may or may not go down to your plan, but for the purpose of, so specifically what is the question?
They're asking about the removal of the pass fail in step 1.
So
will it affect the entry? And
it does in a way, in my opinion. Opinions vary. When you are an IMG, you only have one numerical score on board. Step 1 is not there for you because most of the people will pass anyway. It's just pass or fail. So what does that mean? They are banking on you having good letters of recommendations and good research to push you. Yeah.
Thank you. This one goes to Dr. Hassan. Why internal medicine and why cardiology? I think that's a bit.
You'll be surprised actually from when I was in third year undergraduate all the way until I become an MO, a senior MO in the year 2000. Let me not mention the year because you'll see me very old. I wanted to be a gynecologist. I'll be honest with you. But then when I worked as a medical officer in Mandera, I found it very boring. The same thing. I don't mean to belittle, of course. My wife is a gynecologist now. But I found it extremely, there's no, how do I say, there's no science, there's no reasoning. If it's a cesarean section, you cut, remove. There is science, don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying, I don't know, I found it, internal medicine to be more academic. And of course the heart is just basic physics and mechanics. It's not like rheumatology where you cram criteria. It's not like dermatology where you have differential diagnosis of one rash and there are 20. Cardiology is just straightforward. There's a blood flowing, there's a blockage, you get heart failure, period. It's very simple. And so I don't know, that's a simple reasoning, but I think internal medicine, of course, is the science. You have a differential diagnosis, of course, even you start asking drugs and everything, but at the end of the day, you don't help the patient. Cardiology, there's a lot. It's the most exciting field. I think the only field that has surpassed in terms of research, apart from neuroscience, is HIV, I think, in terms of publishing. But there's a lot of exciting things, as much, even to the extent that Wednesday, I was here in the cath lab of Kenyatta. We put 2 pacemakers for patients. So a patient who cannot make 2 steps, they get heart blocked, and all of a sudden you put for them a battery and they are walking. That's very, very exciting. So, some simple reasons. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. I think we are running much out of time. So, I want to honestly thank Dr. Hassan, Dr. Abdul and Dr. Mohammed for really making time to come and talk to us. This has been quite an informative session. And inshallah, I think we are going to, from this going forward, we are going to inshallah hold more. Dr. Mohammed, this is a question. I think we can, next time, we can join as Usmle to inshallah participate in the community projects. If that is okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That's okay. Yeah. Thank you. So, thank you. Members for making time to come and attend. So I know some people wametoka nyumbani, wengine wamekuja, but I think it has been worth it here. So inshallah, going forward, we'll invite more speakers. When we say we come physical, we can come. Be it in surgery, I think next time you guys can suggest for us. Kama itakuwa ni surgery, kama itakuwa ni pediatrics, gyne. And sorry for our sisters, today we have only gentlemen, but it has come at a very short notice, so we'll try and invite also ladies to come and talk to us inshallah. So at this point I think that is the much I want to say. Maybe someone can come and close it for us inshallah.
I think it's better just start with the graph because it's